You ever stop to think about how a society decides what gets made? Why we have millions of coffee shops but not so many blacksmiths anymore? Well, it turns out every single society, whether it's a tiny village or a huge global power, has to answer a few really fundamental questions about what to do with all the stuff it has. And the answers to those questions? That's what defines their entire economic system. And really, it all comes down to these three big questions. First, what goods and services are we actually going to produce? Second, how are we going to make them? And third, who gets all the stuff once it's made? The way a society answers these three simple questions, that's the rulebook for their entire economy. So let's dive into the first major approach. This one was championed by the legendary economist Adam Smith, and it's called the free market. And its big, kind of radical idea is that maybe the best way to answer these questions is, well, to not have anyone in charge at all. The whole philosophy is pretty much summed up in this one French phrase, laissez-faire. It literally just means, let it be. The idea is simple but powerful. The government should just keep its hands off the economy, let it run its own course. No interference, no central planning, just let it be. Okay, so you might be wondering, how on earth could a hands-off system actually work? Well, Adam Smith had this fascinating theory he called the invisible hand. The idea is that when everybody, you, me, business owners, just acts in their own self-interest, it sort of magically creates the best outcome for everybody. The market guides itself, it fixes its own problems, almost like it's being led by some invisible force. So how does this invisible hand actually work to answer our three big questions? Well, first, what to produce gets decided by you, the consumer. Every single time you buy something, it's like you're casting a vote, telling businesses what you want more of. Then, how to produce. That's driven by the simple desire for profit. Companies have this huge incentive to be as efficient as they can be, to cut waste and lower their costs. And finally, for whom to produce is just sorted out by who can afford the stuff. It's all about the natural push and pull of supply and demand. Now, in this pure free market vision, the government isn't totally gone, but its job is super, super limited. The best way to think about it is like a referee in a game. Its only job is to protect property rights and make sure everyone is playing by the rules, keeping the competition fair. It doesn't actually play the game, it just makes sure nobody's cheating. Okay, so that's one side of the coin. Now let's flip it completely over and look at the polar opposite approach. If the free market is all about the invisible hand, this next system is all about the very visible hand of the government. This is the centrally planned or command economy, and it was championed by Karl Marx. And wow, the differences couldn't be more night and day. In a free market, it's all about individuals and private companies making their own decisions, owning their own stuff, all driven by self-interest. But in a command economy, the central government makes all the decisions, owns all the resources, and is guided by what it decides is the general welfare. They are truly total opposites. So yeah, in this system, the government is the ultimate decision maker. It owns the factories, it owns the farms, it owns all the resources. The whole idea is to replace what they see as the chaos of individual self-interest with rational, top-down planning. The government decides how many cars to build, how much wheat to grow, and who gets what, all with the goal of meeting the needs of the entire society. Okay, so we've got these two perfectly neat models, right? Total freedom on one side, total control on the other. But here's the twist. In the real world, when you push either one of these systems to its absolute extreme, they tend to break. And this is a fundamental fact of modern economics. It's absolutely crucial. You cannot point to a single country on the map today that is a 100% pure free market or a 100% pure command economy. Every single one is some kind of blend. And believe me, there's a very, very good reason for that. And that reason is something economists call market failure. It's basically what happens when a free market, just left to do its own thing, fails to produce good outcomes. There are two main flavors. You've got productive inefficiency, which is just wasting resources, but the really big one is allocative inefficiency. That's when the market completely fails to produce the stuff society actually needs to function. I mean, just think about it for a second. In a world driven purely by profit, would any company build roads for everyone to use for free? Who's going to fund a fire department, or the police, or a national defense? These things are absolutely essential for a society to work, but there's no clear way to make a profit off them. That right there is a classic textbook example of market failure. So if both of the pure systems don't really work in the real world, what's the answer? Well, this brings us to our third and final system,
the one famously advocated by economist John Maynard Keynes. It's the pragmatic, real-world solution, the mixed economy. And the formula is actually pretty simple. You take the energy and the efficiency of the free market, that's what we call the private sector, and you combine it with smart, targeted government intervention, which is the public sector. You're basically trying to get the best of both worlds. So in a mixed economy, the market is still the main engine driving things forward. But, and this is a big but, the government has a critical job to do. It steps in specifically when and where the market fails. It provides those public goods we talked about, like roads and schools. It regulates industries to keep them fair. And it can create a social safety net for people.
And this is the system you see almost everywhere you look today, from countries all across Europe and Asia to right here in the United States, which has basically had a mixed economy since day one. This is the model that works. It recognizes the awesome power of the free market, but it also understands its limits, and it uses government as a tool to fix those problems.
So this leaves us with the real question, the one at the very heart of all modern political and economic debates. It's not really about choosing between the pure market or total government control anymore. The real argument today is all about balance. How much should the government get involved? Where exactly do we draw that line? And that's a question every single society is still trying to answer for itself.